In order to draw clothing, you really only need to know 7 folds. The first one is going to be the pipe fold. This fold occurs when tension is applied to a fabric. Here we have a single tension point where the fabric bunches at the top and then fans out towards the bottom. While most fabric folds can be reduced down to a series of triangles, pipe folds are characterized by a rounded bottom, though it doesn't have to be a consistent semicircle. Pleatwork and ruffled edges are also a type of pipe fold and can imply a lot of three-dimensional form. Pipe folds are a fairly inorganic fold as they require structure to exist. Horizontal pipe folds are the trickiest in my opinion, as you have to think in a more three-dimensional space. But thankfully they're fairly uncommon unless you're creating something like this Joker's collar. Our next fold is going to be the zigzag fold. This fold occurs where fabric just doesn't know quite what to do with itself. It typically occurs at the bottom of a pant leg where the fabric bunches up against a shoe, or where the elastic is like on a pair of joggers. And it gets its name from the light pattern that it creates on fabric. You get an almost honeycomb zigzag effect when this fold occurs. This fold is also dependent on the type of material that you're drawing. So thicker fabrics like wool won't really have too many zigzag folds, or if they do, they'll have one big one, kind of like a dent in armor. Now thinner fashion fabrics like silk or slack material will have more of this zigzag pattern, but it'll only occur when there's an excess of fabric. Now our third fold is going to be the spiral fold. Spiral folds are great because they kind of tell you the direction the fabric is moving. A spiral fold can either wrap towards you or away from you, and it always wraps around the underlying form of whatever the cloth is on. Spiral folds occur regardless of the material, as they're more a sign of movement, so whenever there's a little bit of excess fabric that can wrinkle up and go around the form, it will. So this type of fold only occurs on the edges of whatever object is wrapped in cloth. Spiral folds are going to start at the edges and can absolutely cross over the entire form, like on the forearm here, but they do need that edge in order to imply if they're wrapping towards or away from the audience. Another good example of this is going to be at the torso of this drawing, as the fabric's getting pulled to the center in that tie. In a good drawing, you'll see almost every single one of these folds together. They don't exist in a vacuum. They all kind of work together to define what the fabric's doing in any given situation. Our next fold is going to be a diaper fold. So diaper folds occur between 2 points of tension. It's going to be the kind of draping U shape that occurs between those tension points. I'll add a bit of value to the sketch to really identify those U folds. Now our tension points don't have to be perfectly symmetrical or on the same level like they are here. They can very much be a vertical tension point and a horizontal one, like in the case of any kind of drapes or curtains, or they can be offset like in a lot of dresses with draping. It's really easy to kind of blow off this fold because not everyone's going to depict dresses or togas or those kind of stereotypical examples of diaper folds, but this fold also exists in a lot of modern fashion. Anywhere where there's excess fabric that's under tension and structure is going to have a diaper fold. Our next fold is going to be a drop fold. So drop folds are similar to pipe folds, but they lack structure. They'll still have a tension point where they're falling from, but the main force that you have to be aware of when depicting drop folds is gravity, which can make things a lot easier. This type of fold will bunch up on itself. It'll probably have some spiral folds at the top offering direction, but its main hallmark is that it's not going to be consistent. It's going to do whatever the fabric wants to do. Drop folds are really important when you have anything hanging off of your outfit. So a good example of this is anything with ribbons, ties, or a bit of fringe is going to be a drop fold. It'll have a tension point where it's attached to your outfit, but everything else will be dependent on gravity. It'll also help your drawing overall be a bit more convincing, as there will be a consistent force acting on all the fabric depicted. It'll keep things from looking like they're floating in space. Now our next fold is going to be a dead fold. Dead folds are really interesting because they're inert, and all the other folds can exist within them. While a drop fold is dependent on gravity, a dead fold is dependent on the surface that it's laying on. So this is a great tool if you really want to ground your subject into the scene and re-emphasize whatever plane they're on. And because this is a dead fold, there's not going to be any tension. It's all going to be dependent on the fabric itself and how it builds. A great example of this is when a dress hits the ground. It goes from either a diaper fold or a drop fold and becomes a dead fold. It loses all structure and there's no form underneath it. Only structure to it is how that fabric folds and builds upon itself, which is what makes it such a great tool for re-emphasizing the ground plane. Now our last fold is going to be the half lock. Half lock folds are very active folds. They only exist when two objects meet. The most common examples of half locks are going to occur at a bent knee or a bent elbow, and this is because the fabric folds back in on itself, and because it doesn't have anywhere to go, it creates this kind of teardrop shape, which I'll make a little bit darker so it's clear to see. Now there's always exceptions to these rules, but typically you see a half lock and a spiral fold really close together, mostly because the spiral fold is wrapping around that underlying shape, and the half lock is butting up against it. So if a zigzag fold occurs where the fabric doesn't know what to do, a half lock occurs where the underlying forms are coming together and there's intention behind it. Armed with the knowledge of these 7 folds, you should be able to depict any type of clothing. Now I've been referencing Clothes and Folds by the famous cartoon artist course, which was originally published in 1956. These fundamentals have served animators, illustrators, and everyone in between. Feel free to pause this video and read it yourself, or you can scan the QR code and download a free copy of it from my shop. It's a really quick read, and there's a lot of really great information in it, so I definitely suggest you pick one up. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you around.